Hello there and welcome back. I hope that you're having a wonderful day today. In today's video, we're going to be playing part 4 of this extended portrait painting demonstration. So now you have access to every single brushstroke involved in the development of this painting.
So with the halftone brush, I'm going to just get a little bit of a mix between these two shapes here. I'm going to push this value. Does need to get a little bit darker. Alright, so tell you what, I think we've done a lot now for the face, and I know I say tell you what a lot, but in any case, I think we've done a lot for the face, so you want a little demonstration on painting the hair. So now what I'm going to do is get another brush. So what was on this brush? I don't remember. Let's see here. I don't even know what was on this brush, but whatever was on this brush, we're going to use it now to cover, the area of the hair that we want to describe. And I don't want to do too much. Now for the hair, what's most important is the shape. And you want to establish your darks fairly quickly. So remember, the introduction of a new area in the painting is going to give you exactly what? It's going to give you another awkward stage. So just keep that in mind. So right now I'm just using whatever's on this brush. To be honest, I don't care about what the color is so long as the value is darker than the flesh tone. And to be honest, I think I remember what this brush was, what's on this brush. So when we recharged this area of the palette a little while ago, I think that this is the brush that I used. So I'm just trying to map out how much shape I need for each area for the hair. So in a way, I'm kind of just drawing the contour of the head. So in the same way, we'll be able to, establish a ground and get the outside shape that we need. So typically, this is going to be a thing, okay? So typically, let's see if I can do this. So typically, from the tear duct to the chin, if the model is centered in perspective, so tear duct to chin is roughly equal to tear duct to top of the head. But we are looking up at the model slightly. And how do I know we're looking up at the model? Well, we're seeing a little bit of her nostrils, really. I mean, that's how I know that we're looking up at the model. So long as this is kind of close, it's going to be a very rough estimate here. So I'm just going to raise this shape up a tiny bit just so that we stay on the safe side. It's okay if we have a little more of her hair showing, but it's not typically a good thing if we say, chop off a portion of the hair or of the head. Alright, so I think around there should be good, and let's start to sketch in how much of the hair we want to show. I don't want to do too much. I want to definitely leave this in vignette because I think that's starting to look like it, that style. So if you don't know what vignette means, vignette is basically just leaving areas of the painting unfinished to complement areas of the painting that are more finished. And this is just a fan brush. Just trying to soften that corner. Alright, so now with the same brush, I'm going to add a little bit of Megilp medium to it, and we're going to now start to mix up a dark shape. So we're going to use Ivory Black, Alizarin Crimson Permanent. See how, very easily we can put in that dark shape. And tell you what, the trick is You want to use more medium if you want the paint to flow a little bit more. So certainly with the hair, I want it to flow a little more. So we're going to let the bristles of the brush do some of the work in terms of describing individual hair or strands of hair. I'm not terribly worried about the edge, like over here, just yet. I'm going to come back to that later, but first I want to establish how much shape that I need. I'm going to sharpen that edge. And we're going to keep these edges softer around here. And then we're going to sharpen this edge. Alright, so with the hair, you really want to look for the light and shadow in the hair. So this is pretty much all in dark, and then this is pretty much, it looks like it's all in shadow. And you want to use warmer lights. So for instance, to get the highlights in the hair, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use that ground that I put in before. And that ground that I put in before pretty much had flesh tone, a lot of dark flesh tone in it. And you want to use cooler colors to paint in the lights for the hair, especially if your model has dark hair, like this one. And see how automatically now we're starting to get the illusion of the hair on the surface, at least, you know, at a distance. So I'm going to switch to the flesh tone brush, I don't know, whatever's on this brush. Start to put in those lights. And I'm looking at the back side of the ear. So how much of the back side do I want to show there? And I'm thinking about the cropping, how I'm going to want to crop the portrait aesthetically. I don't want it to be too much of a you know, a decapitated head. So that's why I like a brush stroke like that. Even that is a little more appealing to the eye, just knowing that you can see that the head is resting on the shoulders, even if you can't see where the shoulders fit, or where they, you know, even if you can't see too much nuance for the shoulders, even something like this, a little graceful curve, will be enough to suggest that the head is resting on shoulders, rather than, like, you know, a floating head. So in particular with hair, especially when there's lots of curls and things like this, only a few of these curls should be enough to suggest that the other curls exist relative to the viewer. Like showing these curves right here should be enough to get the hair to read at a distance. Or at least you'll be able to tell, like, the model has semi-curly hair. And try not to finish everything to the same degree. And try to let certain brush marks show, like that one, you know, certain magical brush marks. Knowing where to put in form and where to leave it more mysterious is kind of down to taste. It's a matter of taste. Some folks may have a different taste in that than others. Some folks may want everything to be rendered to the same degree. Others may want areas to be a little bit more quiet. So there really isn't an exact answer to how much to emphasize any one particular shape. It's something you're just going to have to feel out on your own. You know, in the past, I used to say if the hair is the only thing I got right, then it probably wasn't a good day. But at this point, if I get anything right, it's a good day. Let's stick to the positive side. Just gonna soften this edge even more. So we're gonna be very careful with which areas we want to describe with light and which areas we want to leave, just dark. So over here, since her hair is parted to the side, I'm gonna have to at least show some of the skull that exists underneath of here, otherwise it will look unnatural. So this is one of those times I think that I'm just going to be quiet and try to focus on what I'm painting. Alright, so that brush stroke definitely created a massive glare. So I'm going to use the fan brush to help eliminate that glare. Now I'm going to switch to the halftone brush, and that edge is going to need some work. So I think that this value right here ought to do it. I want to mix up a value, kind of like an in-between value, and that's probably going to help to put in that shape for the ear. Why not? So I mixed up an intermediate value, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let these colors kind of blend in with one another, because this has to be a very, very soft edge. And while we're at it, I think we can add more contrast to this subtle curve. And of course, that edge has to be really soft. And I think I want to put in the exact shape for the cast shadow. Remember, a cast shadow, so this is a cast shadow, is a projected shadow. So this is being projected down here. So what you're seeing is the contour of the mandible here being projected down here, and also kind of telling and describing the surface of the structure over here in the same way. So I think there would be a little bit of a little curve here. So let's get the, oh, I gotta be careful with this, because I wanted to put a little bit of flesh tone there just to, you know, kind of change that curve. But if I put flesh tone into here, then that will change the whole aesthetic of the painting. Then I may need to put in some stuff in for the neck. Alright, so I actually took a little break. So I went out to lunch and I came back, and it's important to always give yourself some distance and time away from your painting. So I'm sure many of you already noticed, but that right there, so I need to move the hairline, so probably from here maybe to about there. So let's get the dark brush and just see how easy it is to move things around. I don't know, maybe to about there. I guess to about there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the half-tone brush and the dark brush, which is this one over here. So we're going to move back and forth between those two brushes. So here's the half-tone brush. And let's put a little bit of kind of a cooler tone. A little bit of flake white into that, just to get that edge back, that soft edge. So now that I came back, I took like a, I don't know, like a 45-minute break. You know, they eat lunch or whatever. The paint's starting to get kind of tacky, so rather than see that as something bad, I'm actually going to use that to my advantage. So now that the paint's getting tacky, so that means it's starting to get kind of sticky, so it's starting to stick. It might actually allow me to have a little more control over very subtle value gradations. So we might use that. I think we're almost there, however. I don't know if I want to even put in the background color. I kind of like the way that the painting looks without the background color, because you can see, you know, like these waves of brush strokes in the background going through here, going through there, and this one going all into there. So I don't know. I think I might leave it without the background. Now let's get the light brush again to further describe this edge. Some more cadmium red medium, titanium white. It might be too dark, but I think it's alright. Okay, so I think that's almost about it for dropping the hairline. And again, I'm not trying to make it perfect. I'm not trying to make a perfect photographic rendition of the model. Rather, I want it, you know, I want it to be a painting. Let's just go ahead and throw in some of these little marks for the hair while we're at it. And again, using the flesh tone color to add the lights in the hair. Some more curls. Alright, getting carried away with that. Now the next thing to really look at after adjusting this edge is going to be the the eye, well, the eye that we're seeing, maybe don't look at both of the eyes, even though we're barely seeing anything there. So I'm going to get a smaller brush. Let's see here. Yeah, just this little tiny brush that I was using for the outline over there earlier. And I think that there's much more of a dark shape happening down here. And then I think we're seeing just a tiny little glimpse of, I'll probably need a different brush for that. Alright, this one. So we're seeing just a tiny little glimpse of light on the model's left eyelid. Let's get you in the close-up. Now, do you see it there in the photo reference? That should be somewhere over there. So it's just a little glimpse of light. And here's how you can use horizontals. I can even use the shadow to create a horizontal. So from the tear duct to here, little glimpse of light. Tiny, almost imperceptible. And now with the dark brush, I'm going to go ahead and continue this curve. Goes all down towards here. We're barely seeing anything for the other eye over here. But you know, now that I have you here in a close-up shot, I'm actually looking at my monitor here. So I see that I'm showing a little too much light there. So we want to be in somewhat of this kind of value family. So the again, the Alizarin Crimson Permanent to do the trick, and we want somewhat of a flesh tone. So let's take this brush, whatever was on it, let's put in some more Neo Megilp just to get the paint to flow a little more. Let's add a little bit more Cadmium Red, Yellow Ochre, mix into all of this stuff over here, and you'll see why I'm mixing this value in a second here. Alright, so let's get the okay, this value, let's get this. I really need to get some new brushes soon. Alright, so you're back in close-up shot, and I think that I'm just showing a little too much light there for the sclera. Okay, so I think that might be about good for that. Now, the other color that I mixed up, this is what I mixed it up for, to push that shape back in. I think that probably actually made a pretty big difference. Now let's go ahead and start to articulate this little shape here a little better. So again, with the same brush, I'm going to just mix right up here. I don't want something too saturated or anything too bright. So that's why I'm using the colors that are already on the palette. And we're going to put in another little subtle area of structure. And we're going to look for the structure right along here. So this is going to be kind of a bridge between this form here and then this area here. Let's just add a little bit more light. Some more Neo Megilp Medium. Just to get the paint to flow a little more. I'm going to dab some of it off onto the paper towel, just because I don't want too much paint for this. So we're going to sharpen this edge just a little bit more. So add a little bit more clarity to that form. It's a little sharper than I was initially describing. Now just taking some of the paint off using a paper towel. Just going to lightly tap onto the surface just to get a lighter edge. And now I'm going to have to strategize my brush strokes here. I think that perhaps this edge, I'm going to go ahead and fix that edge, or at least make it a little bit more, I guess, soft around here. So middle tone brush, the whatchamacallit brush. So right into this area here of value, with a little bit of sap green. And just soften this edge. It's actually helping that the paint is getting a little bit tacky, so it helps me. And tacky, I've just used that word to, for sticky, so the paint's getting kind of sticky there. And that's because it's starting to dry. Remember, my Megilp medium, the gel-like medium I'm using, is a fast dryer, so that will happen, and that's okay. I think I've been painting for nearly like 3 hours now. I did take a break. I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, I think I want a little more information for the ear. And the way I'm making these decisions as to what to adjust or what to leave is just by standing back. And just like standing back helps you get a little bit of perspective on your painting, taking a little break also helps as well. Especially when we're working from photo reference, I think the tendency is probably to just kind of continue to work on it for hours and hours and hours at a time. So it's important to take a little break once in a while. So I want the value to get a little bit darker, but I'm also going to add a little bit of more warmth into it. So that's why I'm mixing in this area of the palette. And I definitely want some of these brush strokes to show, just for kind of aesthetic. And now I'm going to get the, let's see here, the dark brush. Just getting all into this. So add some more Megilp to this brush. And the model is wearing an earring. I think that's what this is. So a little brush stroke there. So jewelry you can usually paint in just a couple brush strokes. It doesn't really take much. And at a distance you don't really see much with the jewelry. And I almost missed it. I was so focused on all of this stuff I almost forgot to look there. So just titanium white, ultramarine blue. I'm going to thin it out with my odorless mineral spirits a little bit. Actually, let me show you how I do that. So rather than cleaning off the brush completely, I'm just going to dip it into the odorless mineral spirits, see how it's kind of dripping, then dab it dry a little bit on the side. Just a little bit. And on the palette, hopefully you'll see now the paint is really thin. And when you're painting in alla prima, the idea is that thinner paint will stick onto thicker paint. And it does. It's actually sticking much nicer. A few little spots there for the earring. I don't want to show too much, so let's just go ahead and with the dark brush, whatever happens to be on it, I only want to show a little bit of that earring. See that? Just a tiny bit. So I'm using the dark brush to help kind of modulate the values. And, you know, the idea of thinner paint sticking onto thicker paint, you know, I actually learned that from watching Bob Ross videos. So I just want a little light to show there. And again, I think it's cutting it close. I don't know if I want that much emphasis to be in this area. So again, I'm going to make it really subtle and really, really soft. So this is with the light brush. I'm being very cautious as to how much emphasis will go into the earring, because I want the viewer to have the same experience I did. I didn't really notice it right away. It took me a while to notice that she was wearing earrings. So again, I'm going to try to make it super subtle. And now with the dark brush, I'm going to add a little bit more Alizarin. So Alizarin Crimson Permanent. Just so we can have the tragus of the ear, this little loop right there. That's going to be for the tragus of the ear. And again, with the ears, you don't want to show too much, but just a little indication of some of the surface will help. Just going to soften that. Again, I want the brush strokes definitely to show through, and I think that that edge is too sharp, so I want to kind of blur this a little bit. I usually say when in doubt, blur it out, but I'm pretty confident in, you know, observing what's in the ear. I'm pretty sure I can paint that ear, but I'm choosing not to define it as much, just because I don't want too much emphasis to show onto the ear. I just want the ear to be there in a very kind of quiet fashion. Don't want the ear to take up too much. So I've been playing around with the idea in my head, whether or not to go into the background, but I feel like if I put the background here, although it would help to delineate the contour of the hair, and it would probably give more contrast to the values of the flesh and the flesh tones, I feel like if I put that background, I'm going to feel obligated to put the flesh tone for the neck. But then if I put the flesh tone for the neck, I might feel obligated to go and put in, you know, more stuff for the dress that the model's wearing. And as you recall, I have painted this model before wearing the same costume in the past, a long time ago. And the video that I painted before, I painted a video, right? The painting video I created earlier, I did cover the entire background, and I just like this look, to be honest, where you can see, you know, the tone that the artist painted on, and you can kind of see the artist's, you know, thought process along these areas, the more unfinished areas. So I'll tell you what, I think that I'm going to leave it like this compositionally. There are a few more final touches that I'm going to want to apply. So let's just go ahead and put in those final touches. And again, I've shown you everything. You have seen all of the footage involved in creating this painting. I know that these videos are much longer, but again, I did read that you wanted that you wanted longer videos. So hopefully this is okay. So right now I'm in this value family, all right? So I'm sticking to this value family, but I want something cooler and a little bit more greenish. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that for this this little value right here, letting the paint mix directly right into the color underneath, just to put in a little more, you know, a little more of a plane change between the lower lip and that area. And with the same brush, let's see if I can pull this off. So with the same brush, I'm going to try to soften this edge. I don't think I can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and clean off one of my softer brushes. So I'm going to get the middle tone brush, the whatchamacallit brush, and I'm going to clean it off to the best of my ability. If I had another synthetic brush to my disposal, I would use that instead, but I'm just going to try to clean this off the best that I can. And remember, when I clean my synthetics, I usually don't like to use soap and water. I just try to clean it the best I can with the odorless mineral spirits. Because if I use soap and water, like I have been with this brush, you'll see, hopefully the camera will focus. There we go. You'll see that the bristles start to kind of go a little bit wacky, but that's also just wear and tear with that brush. So when I use bristle brushes, so bristle brushes again are let's see if camera, come on, focus camera. I believe in you. There you go. So this is a bristle brush, and what I do is I clean it in the same way, but then I use soap and water afterwards. So with the bristles, I will use soap and water after cleaning it with the odorless mineral spirits. So I hope this should be about good for cleaning off this brush. And all we're going to do is just soften an edge. And this is the edge that I want to soften, so it's a very light touch. Just trying to soften, just kind of like your blur tool and Photoshop. Just trying to soften and soften. And let's just go ahead and soften this edge too. It's a very light touch. Very careful not to lose the boundary between those edges. A little bit more. Now that is definitely cutting it close in terms of losing the boundary between these edges. Now, yeah, I think I messed that up. So what I'm going to do is just add more light into this. So I'm going to actually add paint into this now just because that got a little bit too green. So again, this is probably one of the last things, the last adjustments that I'll make onto this portrait. But I do want to be very careful with this edge. So with your portraits, be very cautious with this edge. So for the corner between the lower eyelid and the maxilla region of the face, in connection with the nasal bone, the side plane of the nose basically, be careful with that edge. You don't want it to be too green in color, and you don't want it to be too dark unless the situation calls for it. Be very careful with this edge, because if you make it too dark, it'll look like you kind of like she got punched in the face a little bit. But if I make it too light, it'll look vaporous, like it doesn't have any structure. So I have to be very, very cautious. And the next area to be careful with, which we already were kind of careful with, is right around here, these edges. Especially with the model that's in their early 20s, especially I think Jen was, I don't know, mid-20s-ish when this picture was taken. So again, final adjustments here. Trying to make sure I show you every single brush stroke. And again, I'm going back and forth between this edge here. In a way, I don't think I've ever shown you this stage where I'm just very cautiously going back and forth between the final touches. Almost there. So very, very delicate edge. I'm just basically painting until I reach that brush stroke, that magical brush stroke when you know you've said what you wanted to say with your painting. And I've been asked that question a lot, so let's see how I can answer it. I remember being asked, when do you know? How do you know when to, when to stop with a painting? And for me, it's just a matter of feel. Just kind of have to feel it out. You know that feeling. You'll know instinctively when it's time to call it done. And another question I usually get that kind of pertains to this is, how do you keep from overworking your painting? And well, the truth is I have overworked, I'm sure, several of my paintings on YouTube, but one of the best ways to keep from overworking is to stay as far back as possible. Stay as far back from your painting as possible. And I think with that, that's going to be about it for this portrait painting and demonstration. I really hope that this painting video has helped you out. I'm not really sure how many segments I'm going to split this video up into. I don't think it took more than 4 hours, but I don't know. I'm only going to know that when it comes time to editing. That being said, I really do hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day. That is, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And of course, as always, I will be back again very soon.